the Fertile Crescent, 21,000 years ago. No fields, no villages, no civilization of any kind that we would recognize, just humans, wind, and stretches of wild grass that reached as far as the eye could see. Among those grasses was wild wheat. Small, fragile, unimpressive. Today, wheat is the most widely cultivated plant on Earth. It's grown on more than 220 million hectares of land, an area larger than the entire landmass of India. It's the base ingredient of bread, pasta, noodles, cakes, pizza, and nearly every food we consider normal in the modern world. But the most surprising thing isn't those numbers. The most surprising thing is how it all began. Not through a brilliant decision, not through a deliberate discovery. Wheat conquered the world because of a genetic accident, and because humans, without realizing it, kept choosing the defective plant. This is the history of wheat. Wild wheat has one remarkably elegant survival mechanism. When its seeds ripen, the stalk breaks. The seeds fall to the ground, scatter on the wind, and grow on their own the following season. This plant needs no one. It is already perfect in its own way. Then humans started harvesting those seeds, and without realizing it, they always chose the wrong ones. Seeds that had already fallen to the ground were hard to gather. What was easy to harvest were the seeds still clinging to their stalks, seeds whose stalks did not break when touched. This was wheat that was defective by evolutionary standards. In the wild, wheat like this would go extinct because its seeds could not spread. But humans took it home, saved its seeds, planted it again. Generation after generation, only the defective wheat had its seeds stored. The rest was left behind. Archaeobotanist Gordon Hillman, in his research at the Abu Huraira site in Syria, found that people there were already gathering and using wild wheat in large quantities more than 13,000 years ago, long before farming had fully developed. Evidence of wild wheat use across the broader Fertile Crescent can even be traced back 21,000 years. Humans didn't discover farming. Farming discovered them. Most genetic and archaeological evidence suggests the domestication of wheat began around 11 to 10,000 years ago. The earliest archaeological evidence for domesticated wheat comes from southeastern Anatolia, the region we know today as southern Turkey, around 8,800 years before the Common Era. More specifically, geneticists have traced the DNA of modern wheat back to wild wheat that grew on the slopes of the Karachadag Mountains in the province of Diyarbakir. One mountain slope, one population of wild grass, the origin of the entire Once wheat was domesticated, something unexpected happened. Humans stopped moving. For hundreds of thousands of years before, humans had lived as hunter-gatherers who followed the seasons and their prey. There was no reason to stay in one place for too long, because the food sources were always on the move. Cereal farming changed that calculation entirely, and wheat was at the center of that change. Wheat could be stored. Once dried, wheat grains could last for years without rotting. This was the first energy storage technology humans had ever possessed, something that had never existed in the entire history of our species. With wheat in the granary, you no longer had to follow the deer wherever it went. You could stay, you could build. At the Çatalhöyük site in Turkey, occupied between 7,500 and 5,600 years before the Common Era, archaeologists uncovered one of the earliest permanent settlements ever discovered. Thousands of people lived side by side in houses packed together like a honeycomb. There were no streets. To move from one house to another, people had to climb up to the roof and descend through a hole. Wheat remains were found throughout much of the site. In Egypt, wheat made its next leap. The ancient Egyptians didn't just store wheat. They industrialized it. They built centralized oven systems. They created standardized bread production. In the hands of the pharaohs, wheat transformed from a crop into a system for mobilizing thousands of workers, building monuments that would last for millennia, and sustaining political power that went unchallenged. In ancient Egyptian papyri, the wages of pyramid construction workers were not recorded in gold or silver. They were recorded in bread and beer, both made from wheat. In many early societies, wheat functioned like money, a medium of exchange, a means of paying wages, and the most tangible measure of wealth. There is one technical reason why wheat dominated Western civilization, while rice dominated Asia. One protein molecule called gluten. Gluten is an elastic protein network that forms when wheat flour is mixed with water. It can trap the gases produced by yeast fermentation inside the dough, creating tiny bubbles that make bread rise and turn light. Very few food crops can produce a dough as elastic as wheat. Rice produces bread that is dense and crumbly. Corn produces thin, flat tortillas. Oats and rye produce bread that is heavy and tough. No other food crop produces leavened bread as efficiently as wheat. This isn't just a matter of texture. It's a matter of logistics. Wheat bread could be carried on long journeys. It could be stored on ships for days at a time. It could be produced in large quantities and distributed to distant regions. Wheat bread became one of the key components of the Roman military logistics system, allowing troops to march far and hold out for long stretches on the battlefield. Gluten was the hidden fuel behind the expansion of Western civilization. For centuries in Europe, wheat did something that rarely gets mentioned in history books. It decided who held power and who did not. Not through weapons, not through laws, through the color of bread. White bread, made from flour that had been finely sifted with all its coarse fiber removed, was a symbol of luxury and status. Only nobles and the wealthy could afford it. The milling and sifting process required to produce fine white flour demanded expensive technology and labor. Common people ate dark bread, bread made from coarse, unsifted flour, often mixed with husks, dust, and even small pebbles from traditional stone grinding. Bread that was hard, heavy, and frequently chipped or broke teeth because of the hard fragments that accidentally made it into the grind. Food historian Tom Standage noted that in medieval Europe, the quality of bread a person ate was one of the clearest markers of social standing. Honored guests received white bread. Servants received dark bread. That alone was enough to tell everyone in the room exactly where each person stood. Wheat disciplined human taste into a caste system, long before any law formally codified it. Then came the Industrial Revolution, and everything changed. New steam-powered milling machines could produce white flour in far greater quantities at far lower prices. White bread, once the exclusive symbol of the aristocracy, was suddenly available to everyone. For factory workers in Manchester or Liverpool, being able to buy white bread was a sign that they were no longer the suffering poor. It was a symbol of progress, a symbol that their lives were better than their parents' lives had been. Wheat became the most effective tool of democratization in Europe, not through political revolution, but through a revolution in flour milling. From Anatolia, wheat spread across the world at a pace unmatched by any other staple crop. Cyprus, 8,600 years ago. This is the earliest evidence that ancient humans were already capable of transporting seed supplies by sea, not just sailing, but sailing with agricultural logistics. Greece, 6,500 years ago. Wheat arrived carrying the full package of the Neolithic Revolution: permanent settlements, pottery, and livestock. Egypt, 6,000 years ago. Here, wheat met oven technology and yeast fermentation, and the world's first bread industry was born. Germany and Spain, 5,000 years ago. And then a journey that still has archaeologists debating to this day. Around 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, wheat began appearing across various regions of northern China, a region that already had rice and millet as its primary staple crops. How did wheat get that far, thousands of years before the Silk Road was formally established? The answer? Humans have always moved, always traded, always carried seeds wherever they went. Informal trade routes existed long before anyone gave them a name. Then came 1492 and the Columbian Exchange. Wheat crossed the Atlantic to the Americas, not just as food, but as identity. European settlers brought wheat to the New World, not only because they were hungry, but because eating wheat bread was how they asserted that they were still European in a foreign land. In America, wheat permanently transformed the ecosystem. The vast grasslands of the Great Plains, which for thousands of years had been the habitat of bison and Native American peoples, were plowed under and planted with wheat. Within less than a century, a region that had once been one of the richest grassland ecosystems in the world became a monoculture wheat belt stretching thousands of kilometers. Today, wheat is no longer just food or a commodity. It is a weapon, not in a metaphorical sense, in a very real and very dangerous sense. Most of the world's wheat exports are concentrated in 6 countries: the United States, Canada, Australia, Russia, Ukraine, and Argentina. 6 countries that determine whether billions of people across North Africa, the Middle East, and Asia can eat at an affordable price. We often think of war as beginning with tanks and missiles. In many cases, it begins far earlier, when the price of bread starts to rise. February 2022. Russia invaded Ukraine. Ukraine is one of the world's largest wheat exporters, known as the breadbasket of Europe. Within weeks of the invasion, global wheat prices surged by 40%. In Egypt, where the government subsidizes bread for millions of its poorest citizens using wheat imported from Ukraine, panic set in. In Lebanon, already in the grip of a severe economic crisis, national wheat stocks fell to the lowest level in the country's history. In Yemen, Somalia, and Ethiopia, countries already on the brink of famine, the situation deteriorated rapidly. One conflict in one region. Its ripple effects were felt by 1 billion people within months. Food historians often describe this phenomenon as a food shock, a disruption in the food supply that can trigger revolutions and political instability far beyond the original conflict zone. The global food price surge, including wheat, is seen by many analysts as one of the factors that worsened social tensions leading up to the Arab Spring of 2011, the wave of revolutions that swept across North Africa and the Middle East. Rising bread prices have been cited as one of the most immediate and most personally felt triggers for ordinary people. Wheat is a crop born from an evolutionary accident 9,000 years ago. Today, it determines global political stability. There is a deep irony behind the triumph of white bread. For centuries, poor people ate dark bread and dreamed of eating white bread. To them, white bread was a symbol of progress, health, and prosperity. Then modern milling technology made that dream a reality. White bread became cheap and available to everyone. And it turned out, white bread is far worse for your health than the dark bread that had been avoided for so long. The milling process that produces white flour strips away nearly all of the fiber, B vitamins, vitamin E, and minerals found in whole wheat grain. What remains is almost pure starch, which the body digests extremely quickly, causing blood sugar spikes and providing little lasting fullness. The dark bread that aristocrats had avoided for centuries, packed with fiber, slower to digest, more filling, and far richer in nutrients. All of Europe fought for centuries to be able to eat white bread. And once everyone could eat white bread, doctors started telling them to go back to whole wheat. History sometimes has a very dark sense of humor. 9,000 years ago, someone on the slopes of the Karakadag Mountains picked up a wild wheat grain that could not spread on its own. A grain that was, by evolutionary standards, a failure. Today that grain, or more precisely, the descendants of that grain, is grown on 220 million hectares of land across this planet. It is the primary source of calories for billions of people. It has triggered revolutions, decided wars, and built empires. Wheat teaches us one deeply fundamental truth about human civilization. Progress doesn't always mean more choices. Sometimes progress means growing ever more dependent on fewer and fewer choices. And that dependence on a handful of exporting nations, on uniform monoculture varieties, on a global distribution system that can never be allowed to fail, is a fragility we inherited from a genetic accident on a mountain slope in Turkey 9,000 years ago. Wheat didn't win because it was perfect. It won because humans kept choosing it over and over, without realizing it, for thousands of years, and now we cannot live without it.